Welcome to Lord Nightmare channel. We share scary stories with rainy ambience. I hope this video helps you in some way to sleep, relax, or just be entertained for a while. If you enjoy it, please think about subscribing and hitting the thumbs up button to help my channel out. Now let's begin.
It all started last month when I picked up some extra hours at the Walmart near my place. Times are tough, and every bit of cash helps, right? I'd always shopped there, but working there? That's a different story. Especially the night shifts. Let me tell you, there's something about that store after 11 p.m. that feels off. The first couple of nights were uneventful. I was mostly stocking shelves, zoning the aisles, and helping the occasional late-night customer. It was boring, but the kind of boring you appreciate when the clock's crawling. The third night, though, that's when things started getting weird. I was working in the toy aisle, straightening up the shelves. You know, putting Barbie dolls back in place, making sure all the Hot Wheels are lined up. I was by myself. The other guys were in the electronics section a few aisles over. The store was dead quiet. Only the hum of the fluorescent lights and the faint beeping from the registers at self-checkout. That's when I heard it, a faint giggle. At first, I thought it was one of the guys messing around. I called out, "Real funny, guys. You trying to scare me?" But nobody answered. The giggle came again, this time from the other end of the aisle. It wasn't a kid's giggle. No one brings their kids to Walmart this late. It sounded wrong. Like someone was trying to mimic a child but didn't quite know how. I felt this cold chill run down my back. I walked to the end of the aisle, but there was no one there. Just rows of dolls staring blankly from their boxes. I tried to shake it off. "It's nothing," I told myself. "I'm just tired." I moved on to the next aisle. More toys, but now my ears were on high alert. I kept glancing over my shoulder, half expecting someone to jump out at me. That's when I noticed it. One of the dolls on the shelf was facing backward. All the others were perfectly lined up, facing forward, but this one, it was turned around. I don't remember it being like that when I came in. I reached out to turn it around, and as soon as I did, I swear I heard someone whisper, "Don't." The voice was raspy, almost like a breath escaping through clenched teeth. My hand froze. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst out of my chest. But there was no one there. I'm not proud of this, but I bolted out of that aisle. I practically sprinted to the electronics section, where my coworker, Sam, was messing with the speaker display. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual, "did you hear anything just now? Like, laughing or whispering?" Sam just looked at me and laughed. "Dude, it's Walmart at midnight. This place is creepy. You probably imagined it." Maybe he was right. But then why did it feel so real? The rest of the night was uneventful. I stayed close to the others and avoided the toy aisle altogether. But the weirdness didn't stop. In fact, it got worse the next night. I was restocking the seasonal aisle, Halloween decorations mostly. Pumpkins, skeletons, those fake spiderwebs. The perfect setting for my nerves to get the better of me. I was stacking a box of fake tombstones when one of them toppled over, knocking over the whole display. As I bent down to fix it, I saw something move out of the corner of my eye. It was quick, like a shadow darting between the aisles. I stood up, scanning the area. "Hello," I called out. My voice echoed eerily, but there was no response. Just the hum of the lights again. Then I noticed something that made my stomach drop. One of the skeleton decorations had been hung from the ceiling with fishing line. It's supposed to just dangle there harmless. But it wasn't dangling. It was slowly spinning, like something had pushed it. And I swear, as it turned, its hollow eyes seemed to lock onto mine. The air felt heavier, like the room was holding its breath. I took a step back and bumped into someone. I yelped and spun around, only to see Sam standing there, holding a Red Bull and looking at me like I'd lost it. "Dude, are you okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I lied. "Just tired, I guess." But I wasn't okay. Not at all. I couldn't shake the feeling that something, or someone, was watching me. I finished the shift and got the hell out of there as soon as I could. The final straw came a few nights later. I was in the stockroom unpacking a shipment of clearance items. The stockroom is even creepier than the main floor. No windows, just rows of metal shelves stacked high with random stuff. I was halfway through opening a box when the lights flickered. They do that sometimes, but this time, they didn't come back on right away. For a solid 10 seconds, I was in complete darkness. When the lights came back, I wasn't alone. At the far end of the stockroom, I saw a figure. It was standing still, almost blending in with the shadows. My first thought was that it was one of the mannequins we sometimes store back there. But then it moved. Just a slight tilt of the head, like it was watching me. Its outline was wrong, jagged, like it didn't quite belong. I froze. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. My mind was screaming at me to run, but my legs felt like they were made of lead. The figure took a step forward. That's when I snapped out of it. I turned and ran, not caring what I knocked over in the process. I burst out of the stockroom, nearly colliding with my manager. "What's your problem?" she snapped. "There's someone in there," I stammered, pointing back toward the stockroom. She frowned and walked past me, pushing the door open. I followed, staying close behind her. But when we got inside, it was empty. No figure, no sign that anyone had been there. Just the box I'd been unpacking, sitting half open on the floor. But then I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The word "leave" scratched into the wall, faint but unmistakable. "Maybe you need a break," she said, giving me a strange look. I nodded, but I knew I wasn't coming back. That was my last shift at Walmart. To this day, I can't explain what happened. I've told myself it was just my imagination, a trick of the light, anything to make sense of it. But deep down, I know the truth. Something is wrong with that place. And if you ever find yourself wandering through a Walmart late at night, keep your guard up, because you never know what's watching you. It was supposed to be a simple trip, just a quick stop at Walmart for a few items. I had just finished my shift at work, and the store was only a few minutes from my house. I usually went to Walmart late at night because it was quieter, less crowded. I hate crowds, and the thought of picking up my groceries while everyone else was asleep? It sounded peaceful. But that night, something felt off. I don't know if I can explain it, but the moment I walked through the automatic doors, I felt like I wasn't alone. It wasn't the usual emptiness of the store at night. This was different. It was the silence that hit me first. A dead, suffocating silence. Usually, there's that low hum of the overhead lights, the background noise of the refrigerators, or even a few distant conversations from the other customers. But this time, nothing. I grabbed a cart, trying to shake off the odd feeling gnawing at my stomach. It was just my mind playing tricks on me, I thought. It was late. I was tired. Maybe I was just being paranoid. I made my way to the produce section, the bright, sterile lights casting long shadows across the polished floors. As I grabbed some apples, I noticed something strange. In the corner of my eye, I saw a figure standing at the far end of the aisle. At first, I thought it was just another shopper, someone else who had come to grab something late. But when I looked again, I froze. The man wasn't moving. He was standing perfectly still, his back facing me, but something about his posture didn't feel right. His arms hung loosely at his sides, his head slightly tilted down as if he was looking at the floor. He wasn't holding anything, no basket, no items. He was just standing there, staring down. At first, I thought it was just a random person. But then I realized something. I couldn't remember seeing him walk in. I'd been in that aisle for a few minutes already, and when I'd entered, the space was empty. It felt like he had just appeared out of nowhere. I tried to shake it off, telling myself that maybe I was just being paranoid again. I moved past the aisle quickly, grabbing a few more items. But as I walked, I couldn't help but glance back. He was still there, standing motionless. It was starting to creep me out. So, I decided to head to the back of the store. Maybe it would help if I just kept moving, got some distance between me and whatever that guy was doing. I made my way to the electronics section, where the aisles were slightly darker, quieter. There was no one there. It was just me, alone in that empty corner of the store. But as I started looking at some headphones, I heard something. A soft scrape, like a foot shuffling across the floor. I spun around, my heart hammering in my chest, and there, standing at the end of the aisle, was the man. Only now, his head was slightly raised. His eyes were wide open, staring directly at me. His face was pale, almost sickly, and his eyes were unblinking, just locked onto me. I froze. And then, without moving a muscle, he tilted his head to the side, almost like he was studying me. I didn't know what to do. I stood there, frozen. My heart was beating so loudly in my chest that I could barely hear anything else. I wanted to leave, but I couldn't tear my eyes away from him. Every instinct in me was telling me to run, to get out of the store as fast as possible. But I was paralyzed, staring at this strange man who was standing completely still, his eyes never leaving mine. Finally, I turned around and started walking as quickly as I could. I didn't dare run. Something told me if I ran, something bad would happen. I kept my pace steady, heading toward the front of the store, but my mind kept racing. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being followed. I made it to the main aisle, just past the registers, when I saw him again. This time he was closer, much closer. I didn't hear him moving, but when I glanced up, he was standing just a few feet away from me, in the middle of the aisle. I could smell him now. The odor of sweat and something else, something faintly metallic. It hit me in the face, and I recoiled, feeling a wave of nausea wash over me. "Are you okay?" the cashier at the register asked, glancing up at me. I didn't respond. My eyes were locked on the man. He wasn't looking at her. He wasn't looking at anything else. He was staring directly at me, and the look in his eyes, God, it wasn't just vacant. It was predatory. I took a step back. I had to get out of there. I forced myself to keep moving, walking quickly, but the man was always there. Every time I turned a corner, every time I glanced over my shoulder, he was standing just a little closer. I made my way to the front doors, trying to remain calm, trying to not panic, but when I got there, the doors didn't open. I pressed the button to open them, but nothing happened. Panic surged through me. I looked around, but there was no one else. It felt like I was the last person in the world. That's when I heard it. A faint rustling sound from behind me, followed by the soft scrape of footsteps. I turned around, and there he was, standing in the entryway, blocking the only way out. His arms were now outstretched, almost like he was reaching for me. I didn't hesitate. I bolted. I sprinted to the side exit, my legs pumping as fast as they could go. My heart was in my throat, and I didn't dare look back, but I could feel it. His eyes on me. It was as if he were still watching me, no matter how fast I ran. The moment I burst through that side door, into the cool night air, I heard the faintest sound, like the sound of someone chuckling. But it wasn't a real laugh. It was slow, hollow. I didn't stop running until I reached my car. I didn't look back. And when I drove home, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. I couldn't shake the feeling that the man had been waiting for me, watching me. To this day, I don't know who he was or why he was at that Walmart. But every time I go back there, even during the day, I can't shake the feeling that he's still watching me from the shadows, waiting for me to return. And I wonder, if I had stayed just a little longer, what would have happened? It was one of those nights where everything felt like it was off from the moment I walked in. I had just finished my late shift at work, around 1 a.m., and the only place open was Walmart. I needed a few things: toothpaste, milk, some snacks. Simple stuff. I've always preferred going at night when the store is quiet and empty. There's something peaceful about it, right? No crowds. No noise. Just you and the shelves. But that night, something felt wrong. The moment I stepped inside, the automatic doors closed behind me with a hollow thunk that seemed too loud for the size of the store. The air was thick with that weird, sterile smell, the kind of place where the lights never stop buzzing. The store was mostly empty, just a few other tired-looking souls pushing carts or wandering aimlessly. It felt like I had entered a space frozen in time. I grabbed a cart and headed toward the grocery section. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, adding to the eerie vibe of the place. As I walked down one of the aisles, I noticed something that made my stomach tighten. A man. He was standing at the end of the aisle, just standing there. No cart, no basket. His body was stiff, unnaturally still, as if he was waiting for something. He had his back to me, but I could tell from his posture that something wasn't right. His head was tilted down, his arms hanging limply at his sides. At first, I thought he was just another customer, maybe a worker on a break. But there was something in the way he stood, too rigid, too unnatural. It was like he was holding his breath, like he was waiting for something or someone. I didn't think much of it at the time. Maybe he was just some weird guy, right? But still, the feeling of being watched crept into my thoughts. I shook it off, grabbed my items, and turned to leave the aisle. That's when I heard it. A slow shuffle of footsteps. Not fast. Just dragging, like someone trying not to make a sound. I looked around, nothing. The aisle was empty. My heart started racing, but I convinced myself it was just the store's creaky floors or the hum of the lights playing tricks on me. But the shuffle didn't stop. It was closer now. I turned quickly, my eyes scanning every corner of the aisle, but there was still no one there. The man was gone, vanished like he had never been there. I didn't know whether to laugh at myself for being paranoid or to just leave. But something made me stay. Something kept pushing me forward. I needed to get out of there, but the sense of unease wouldn't leave. I continued walking, but with every step, the sound of shuffling footsteps seemed to follow me. It wasn't just my imagination. I could hear them behind me. Slow, deliberate. That's when I heard a voice. Soft, almost a whisper. "Hey!" I froze. It was coming from the aisle beside me. I looked around, trying to make sense of it, and then I saw him. The man. He was standing at the other end of the aisle, staring directly at me. His face was pale, his eyes wide, and there was something deeply unsettling about the way he looked at me. It was like he wasn't even seeing me, just studying me. I could feel his gaze like a weight pressing down on my chest. He didn't say anything else. He just stood there, unmoving, like he was waiting for me to make the next move. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. It felt like everything around me had stopped. The lights, the shelves, the quiet, everything was drowned out by the sound of my own heart pounding in my ears. Without thinking, I grabbed the closest item off the shelf and turned to walk away. My legs were shaky. My mind was racing. And then I heard it again. "Hey!" But this time, it wasn't soft. It wasn't a whisper. It was a command. A growl. I whipped around, and for the briefest moment, I thought I saw him smiling. His face twisted into something that wasn't human, like something ugly that was trying to look normal. But I didn't want to stay around to figure it out. I started walking fast, then running. I pushed through the aisles, glancing over my shoulder. But every time I turned a corner, he was there. Standing just a few feet away, his eyes locked onto me like he was following me, stalking me. The exit doors were only a few aisles away. I could see them. The light from outside was spilling into the store, offering a promise of escape. But the moment I reached the front, something went wrong. The doors, they wouldn't open. I pressed the button repeatedly. I pushed on the glass. I even tried yelling for help, but the store was silent, dead silent. No employees, no customers. It was just me and this man. And that was when the true terror set in. I could hear him moving closer now. Those footsteps. That dragging, deliberate shuffle. I turned and he was right behind me, just a few feet away. He hadn't made a sound. He was silent, like a shadow. I didn't know what he wanted. I didn't care. All I knew was that I had to get out. And then, just as quickly as it had started, the doors slid open. I didn't hesitate. I bolted out into the night air, not stopping until I was in my car, the engine roaring to life beneath me. I didn't look back. To this day, I don't know who that man was or why he was there. And I haven't been back to Walmart since. Have you ever had a creepy experience in a place that's supposed to be safe? Maybe a time when you felt like someone was watching you, or when you felt like you were being followed. I want to hear your stories. Drop a comment below and share what happened. Let's talk about it. And if you enjoyed this story, or if it gave you chills, hit that like button, subscribe, and don't forget to share this video with your friends. I'll be posting more creepy true stories, and I want you to be a part of it.